Hi there! Join me in painting an easy watercolor mountain landscape in this art lesson. Start by sketching in the mountain. And if you'd like, you can refer to the photo that I have on my website at artlooklearn.com. Keep your lines nice and light so that the pencil doesn't show through the paint. I'm actually making my lines darker so that they can be seen on the camera, but make sure you keep your lines nice and light. Start by painting the sky using a wet on wet technique. So I'm going to fill in the sky area with clean water just to dampen the entire area. After the sky is wet, paint in streaks of blue. I'm using cerulean blue. So the sky is kind of streaked with clouds and with blue sky intermixed. So I'm just adding in streaks of blue and then leaving the sky the color of the paper. And after I've added the blue, I'm just going to kind of go back in and soften the edges of the blue. Using just clean water on my brush, just soften those edges to get a nice soft transition between the blue and the white. When this dries, it will appear even softer. Now I've mixed together a black and Prussian blue and using that to paint the mountains in the distance. I start by painting in a squiggly line as well as a little bit of definition at the tops of the mountains. And down from that squiggly line, I'm just adding some other lines to indicate the craggy mountain peaks. Now rinsing out my brush and then just using the pigment that's already on the paper, I'm going to pull out that color and just make it a nice soft wash. So I'll leave some parts with a hard to find line and then pull out some of the pigment to make a nice light wash. Now that little area right there, I just got a little bit too crazy, got some of the mountain color up into the sky. So I just used my clean paintbrush to pull that right off. And adding a few more washes here and there. I'm going to work each section of the mountain separately. So working on the next section, repeating the same idea, the squiggly line, cleaning my paintbrush, and then just using the pigment that's already on the paper, making more squiggly lines down from it, starting to define all these craggy peaks, and then pulling the washes out from those lines. And then adding a few more washes here and there as I see fit. I've obviously edited this video so it doesn't take forever to watch it, but just keep in mind that it did take me, even with a lot of practice in this composition, it took me a lot of time. So take your time in creating this mountain landscape. Now I've mixed together some ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow, and black, and watered it down quite a bit to make this nice sage green wash. So I've gone ahead and painted in this entire middle ground area with the green. And in the foreground, I've made a wash with yellow ochre. And I'm just going to go ahead and paint that in the entire foreground area. Now the middle ground should be a little bit dry. So I'm going to go back in. I've added a little bit more black to my green mixture. So I can add in the definition now, the more details in this middle ground area. So I'm hitting the top of this green mountain first with the dark green, black green mix. And I'm going to pull that out to make a nice soft wash and soft transition. And repeating the technique I used above, painting in a squiggly line to define the craggy peaks of the mountain, and lines coming down. And then I will rinse out my brush, and then using the pigment that's just on the paper, pull some of that pigment out to make a nice light wash. And again, working each section of the mountain at a time. So there, I've rinsed out my paintbrush, and then just pulling out those washes. You could experiment using different types of brushes here. I prefer the round for a lot of my watercolor work. You could try using a flat brush, using the edge of a flat brush, up to you. All right, and thanks to the magic of television, here we have the middle foreground completed. Now I've added just a little bit more blue and yellow into that same green mixture to brighten it up a little bit. And I'm using that to go into the foreground and add some more detail. Just hitting the tops of those hills a little bit. And a little bush peeking over the edge of the hill. And a few little trees. Now I'm going in with some yellow, lightening up that green color. Ooh, that's actually a lot darker than I want it, so I'm going to just lift that paint off using the clean edge of my paper towel wrapped around my finger. I'm just going to lift that paint off. Now adding more yellow and just a teeny bit of green. You can see here I did switch to the flat paintbrush so I can cover a little bit more area more quickly. Now I'm blending out the edges of that yellow and then blending, just barely blending the areas where the yellow and green meet. Make sure you don't overblend your colors, because you could end up with a big muddy mess if you're over blending. So just a teeny bit to soften the edges where the true colors meet. Now I've mixed together some cadmium red light and cadmium yellow to make a nice orange color. I'm just adding it in a few little areas. I'm going in with that yellowish green again as well. And then just lightly blending them together. Don't be afraid of using too much color, because remember that watercolors will dry a little bit lighter than they are when they're wet. Now using a dark green, I'm just going in and adding a few little low lights to these trees and that bush. That will also help give a focal point to this painting. You always want to have a focal point, a place for the viewer's eyes to kind of rest. And now using yellow ochre, I'm going to add one more little tree here in the foreground. And repeat that color up on the hill as well and blend it in. I'm using burnt sienna now to add just a few little low lights to this little orange tree. And that's it. If you like this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and visit Art Look Learn for more great art lessons. Thanks for watching.